So the deal is, though, that this is Reef Beef, and Richard and I talked to each other like we were at a trade show, and something caught our interest, and we're in the bar and we're talking and BSing and all that stuff. So the reason for this preamble is because we don't really police our language that much. Be known to that. This is Reef Beef. My name is Rich,
My name is Ben,
and today
on a very special, intimate edition of Reef Beef Podcast, we are going to talk all things live rock, Rich's attack on cyano, Ben kills a loach, spawning update, and a bunch of other things with beefs and some other small tidbits here and there. This show is sponsored by saltwateraquarium.com.
Champion Lighting and Supply.
And powered by PolypLab. All three of those sponsors have re-upped to continue supporting our show. So that means we're doing something right, and we appreciate that and them. And of course, we appreciate the beefers. Let's get into it. This is the Reef Beef Podcast. Benjamin!
Nice fade.
Thanks, buddy. How's your hat?
It's good. It's hiding my eyes.
Do you have a garlic on your hat? What is
It's my daughter crochets, and she crocheted this flower.
Oh, and so that's in your quasi-Australian fedora, or is that a Western?
I think I just set this felt hat down somewhere, and it just decided it was going to be Aussie.
Oh, well, is it a cowboy hat? It's Aussie because you set it down and the brim isn't Texas anymore.
And the gravity of Australia on the other side of the planet pulled it down and forced it to become Aussie.
Now, you've been in Texas your whole life?
I've ventured outside of it a few times.
I'm wondering when people go to Texas, when they move there, do they have to legally buy a cowboy hat?
I feel like unless you've been here 10 years, that's a poser move. So it's more like if you were born here.
Okay. All right. What about cowboy boots?
We were born with them, and a pistoli.
But what if you've come there? How long do you have to be there before you're allowed to wear cowboy boots without being a poser?
10 years.
10 years. All right.
Yeah,
be it known.
You also have to throw a bale of hay and stick your finger in cow poop.
Okay. All right. All you people flocking to Tejas.
Flocking.
Know the words. But enough about what this podcast isn't about. What is going on, Benjamin, in your reefing world?
So, I own a maintenance company in Houston, and I do freshwater and saltwater accounts. And a week prior, I had cleaned this client's huge freshwater aquarium, 600-gallon. That's pretty big for freshwater.
That is big for saltwater too. That's a big tank.
But he's about an hour north of me. I have some spattering of other accounts near there, but I had just cleaned his tank. And then I got a text from him a week later, and he's like, man, there's an emergency. Water's spilling over the top of my tank. So I turned it off. And if you could please help me out. So this is a client that I've had for like 10 to 12 years. So it's definitely a situation where it's like, drop what you're doing. Well, I had to finish what I was on. But it sucks. I was far away, and I knew that this was going to be something this was a schedule clearing event, which sucks because
you're a reef EMT. You tell your other clients, got an emergency. I'll be there when I can.
Interesting enough, this is the tank that I had that emergency one time where I swapped that pump out, and the pump fit right away.
Oh, yeah. That's a good thing to have. And
so, obviously I do this for a living, and I've been doing it for so long. I mean, I think anyone would do this while I'm driving there. My mind is racing. I know the system like the back of my hand. So it was like, what could it be? What would do that?
The whole drive, you're pre-troubleshooting.
Well, yeah, I want to sort of most of the time I would say I solve something before I even get there, and that's why I do that.
Let's not get away from that. I do that in bed. So, when I'm planning on making a change to something, like this anemone tank we're going to talk about, I have to completely rescape. Maybe we'll do a film of it. But I went to bed last night and my brain was just going, okay, I could do this and do this. And that I need this piece of equipment. I need this bucks. I need, just kind of getting everything in a row to make when I actually do it, it's easier and I don't have to waste time trying to troubleshoot extra on the fly. Is it the same kind of thing?
I was while you were telling me that it was as sort of a short aside. I do that a lot, and it helps me go to sleep too.
Ah,
I wonder if that's what you were doing. But like, when I get a new account or I'm trying to figure something out, I will always start thinking about that to go to sleep because if I start worrying about existential crisis, like I won't go to sleep.
but
But
but I mean, it just even not asleep, even doing it in the shower or just sitting down with a pen and paper before you take on
yeah,
a task, um, it helps. And I know as soon as, and it gets you in practice too. That's what was tickling my brain. So when I know when I find out something's goofy in my system, my checklist goes ding, 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 and then it gets rid of the stupid ones. And then it's like, okay, this is the one I'm checking first, second, and third. These are the most likely candidates.
I sort of figure everyone does that, but I might be wrong.
Maybe do you do it like Terminator? I see it like Terminator. I see like a black and white thing of my tank come up in my head, and then
Like
a
check,
red,
check, check.
yeah, a red
Red X.
circle circles around it, and then a checklist
Yes.
comes up, and
And then you turn to your tank and you say, I'll be back.
I'm coming now.
I'm coming now. That could mean so many things, Richard.
Give me your water. Your
So
clothes, your water. Take it out.
take it now. If you want to live, take my hand. But,
Okay,
but,
so you're driving, and you're trying to figure out what the problem is because you know this system like the back of your hand.
well, this one's jacked because I'm driving for an hour
Oh
and,
no.
and I'm just like, dude, I don't know what this could be. And like I'm saying, 9 times out of 10, this doesn't happen. I've already have it figured out. So I get there, and even once I get there, that's another thing. Again, I've been doing this for so long. If you tell me a tank has a problem, I need 5 minutes tops when I get there, and I found it.
Yeah.
Just because I've seen scenarios so many times. But even I get there, and it took me like 15 minutes to figure out what the hell was going on. Because, at first, too, I'm like picking up his wet towels because he's got wooden floors. And while it was great to put towels on the floor, you don't let a wet towel stay there. So, I'm picking those up, and then I'm like looking, and his sump is super high. And also, so the first thing I noticed is the water's riding high on the overflow teeth. And I was like, there's no way that they should be riding that high on the overflow teeth. And I look at both sides. So it's a room divider tank and there's overflows on both sides.
One is
Now,
high or both are high.
they're both high because it
Oh
would have to
no.
be like that. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I know what happened.
If one side was high, the other would be high. But so like it compounds, it's weird. So I plugged it in back in, and so when I got there, it was unplugged. I get there, I plug it back in, and the water's riding high on both overflows. So I'm like, okay, so again, it's like a pretty tall tank.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
and it has two drains in each, two Durso drains in each overflow. Okay, and these are like almost 3 foot tall Durso pipes. Now, if you know a Durso drain where there's a pipe coming up from the drain and then a T and then a cap with a hole drilled in it and then an elbow, usually a street elbow or just a regular elbow. Um, on this configuration, I could not fit a regular elbow or a street elbow in there, so it's an open T, just because there's just enough room in this overflow box for that. Um, and so, obviously I'm like, well, something went in one of the pipes and is stuck in there. So I start pulling Durso drains out and I start on the right side pulling out. No, the water rushes through. No, the next one. I get over the left side. So he had a dojo loach, which it looks like a long sort of eel, but it grew up in this tank and man, it was pretty much the size of a 1 foot wooden ruler. It was huge. And it used to do so. Man, it's funny. You when you take care of stuff like this, you observe animals doing strange things that you don't normally think of. This dojo loach would all the time go lay across the overflow teeth, and the customer would ask me like, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? Now, he was big and he was old, so I don't really know what he was doing. The tank obviously turns over great. There's great oxygen in it. I don't it's not, it was something of laziness. When I worked at the zoo, I observed other big animals doing weird stuff like this. Like, for whatever reason, he would and so you would this wasn't like he didn't just do this for like a month. This fish was doing this for like a year. Just he liked to lay across the overflow.
Sure.
But I get, and it's funny because you sometimes it's like I never would have thought he would have gone over it, even though maybe some people watching this would think that like, hey, maybe you should have thought of that. But like I said, the thing did it for a year. Um, and also too, at that time, he wasn't necessarily big enough to where I thought he would like. I mean, these are inch-and-a-half pipes. I didn't think he would like clog them up. But I pull one out, and the some bitch is dead, stuck in there. Now, that's also interesting because he only clogged up one hole. And I found that while his tank did overflow, it didn't overflow very much, even though even a little is concerning. So if you clog up one hole, that was enough to, make the tank dribble over, which I found out later. No, it wasn't flying out of the top, it was dribbling over. So, maybe I should tune the pump down a little bit because if you just clog up one of four holes, that's disconcerting. But my main thing is like, Ben, how are we going to protect these drains? And right away I remembered when I was looking at them, I was like, crap, well, I can't if I had an elbow on there, I could put a large strainer on the
Yeah.
bottom of those elbows to keep stuff from going in it. But I can't. So then right away I was like, oh, wait a minute, because they at Home Depot or Lowe's, they have this black mesh stuff called rain gutter guard that I use for a lot of different things. So what I'm going to do is use cable ties and I'm going to create a tall fence around the overflow just to keep. I mean, when is that ever going to happen again? No, but probably never. But I just, sometimes we're reactionary. Sometimes I'm, reacting to what just happened.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's
know,
why not do that? And I suppose if it's only a little bit and we don't care about the flow so much, tuning it down to one of your overflows, your return pump, tuning it down so one can handle the entire capacity is not a bad idea. And, I guess this is another reason why you want your drains to be as big as possible.
yeah.
Um, but you definitely want to do why can't you put a strainer on it or like a homemade strainer?
Because there's no I I suppose I could pull the T out. It's because there's no room for an elbow to come out of the T.
Ah, I see.
But I could probably do something like do pull the T out, cut an oversized circle of the rain gutter guard, do silicone, excuse me, on the lip of the T fitting and glue that on there. That's another way.
Is there enough for like you could also just glue it onto a it's a T. Oh, so you could just take a piece of pipe and cut it like a half an inch and glue it to
Yeah, I
that
could
and
maybe
slide that in
cut down
in.
like a street L. Street L is one where it turns a little tighter and it has a
Yeah.
socket on one side.
Yeah. I am terrified of having open drains for a snail or whatever. And I also do this with the gutter guard in the public aquarium world. We use Kydex, which is comes in a bunch of different sizes and is more expensive than gutter guard, but it comes in full sheets or rolls actually. But the gutter guard is great, and I've made on both of my tanks, on both of my overflows, I have what you described because it goes in the teeth and it kind of S wraps on the
Ah,
combs of the teeth. Um, and then I can just pull that out and flip it around to stop algae and stuff, whatever's grown on it, biofouling. So,
yeah.
um,
But, obviously, and when you're a business, it's like this is about a $5 million house.
yeah.
And
Oh, then
keep in mind in Texas, so it's like the purchase power of a $5 million home is bigger. And it's just, obviously I can't have anyone's tank overrunning and something like that. I don't want to
Uh,
get hit on my general liability insurance.
well, this is crazy. What just happened is bizarre, and I would definitely fix it. And
Yeah.
in your situation, you know, I would totally tune the pump down a little bit because why not?
Yeah.
Or put an apex on it, or something with leak sensors. But then, how far are you going to go? How far are you going to go? This is a weird thing that happened.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it wasn't too bad, and I'm glad you've got um, an answer.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, like you and I have said many times before, it can be so tricky because when you're doing this for a business, someone calls you, it's an important client, like you gotta do it.
Technical difficulty in Reef Beef Land.
Saltwateraquarium.com. 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 Richard, what do you like about saltwateraquarium.com?
I like that I could buy my F-aptasia from them and it gets to me quick because sometimes I go through it, I spike it with sodium hydroxide, and then I kill a bunch of stuff with it. And I always like to have some on site, but it but when I'm out, I like that it comes quick.
Oh yeah,
They got 3 distribution sites, so if I order it um, by 11, it's usually shipped that same day, and I get it the next day or a day later for just regular shipping.
well,
What do
and
you?
that's why they have the psychic department where they know what you're going to order before you order it.
They do. Now you just go to their app and you hold it up to your head
Yeah,
and you go Reef, and boom, it auto populates and you buy stuff.
totally.
So yeah, check them out. They've been a supporter of us since before we had the show, and they're still a supporter of the show, and we appreciate them very much.
Saltwateraquarium.com.
Technical difficulty in Reef Beef Land.
Oh, so what about you, Richard? What kind of weird stuff you got going on?
I'm fighting cyano in a weird way. You can see this tank behind me here, there on the bottom
Very
right,
cloudy.
I guess. It's very cloudy, and that's the tank where the baby corals are raised. And there's cyano in the tank, and it's been bugging me. So I don't want to do a blackout because I don't want to risk those corals. And because sometimes SPS get weird when you go a full 5 days. Sometimes they don't. And I often do more than 5 days because I forget to pay attention. So I put the polishing filter in there with the magnet. So that's sucking goo out. And then I was basting it, and it was like, maybe if I baste it a few times, I can get ahead of it. And I was like, well, I'm a lazy. That's my goal, is to be, well, that's my, not my goal. It's my way of being. It's my mantra.
Yeah.
And I thought, how do I automate this? And I went, I got a bunch of pumps laying around. So I added extra pumps on there. And I've got, right now, I got 2 Jibaos, because that's what I have laying around. And I've got them. One is the egg-shaped one that moves around, and one is the puck. And I move them from time to time, but they are they are blowing on the substrate, just totally puffing all the time.
Yeah.
So and then I go in and I puff it up as well with the base.
Do you think that sedimentation could piss off baby corals?
I think it's just the opposite. They're not babies anymore. They're like frag size.
That's
so,
right. Teenagers.
But they actually look better than ever.
Huh.
So I do go in and baste it anyway because, the sand blows around and then it stops being cloudy. So I move the pumps around or re-aim them or change the flow again, or I baste. And so it's been like 3 weeks now I've been playing with it. I haven't been really crazy about it, but every day or every other day it looks like that. And the corals look fucking good.
Here's a question.
They're eating. I think they're eating.
Those 4 tanks, they slowly bleed into your system, correct?
Yes.
So I'm interested in this because your total system is like 400, 500 gallons when you account for everything.
Yes.
Since you cloud up that tank, are you seeing cloudiness elsewhere?
No.
I didn't think so.
No. And Yeah, no, the water
It's like
flow
they're
isn't enough.
semi-isolated, but they're
Uh,
not
If
isolated.
if so the water goes into the top two tanks and then drains into the bottom two tanks and then that goes back to the sump. And the sump is, 8 feet long.
Yeah,
So that's stuff and it has to hit the skimmer.
yeah.
So if you cloud up the bottom tanks, I don't see any clouding in any other tank. If I cloud one of the upper tanks, the lower tank will get cloudy, but no big deal.
Cool.
I definitely see less cyano. And again, I'm not trying to do this as fast as possible. If I was, I would probably install one of those sweeps that we'll talk about in
Todd,
the
Todd sweeps.
the ocean sea wave. That would be at the substrate level and it would sweep back and forth. Um,
Oh, that'd be messy.
yeah, but I don't care about the messy. And then I would put that on a timer to come on twice a day for an hour and just keep blasting the cyano out. And I think I'm going to get ahead of it for two reasons. One, manual remover, but it's also changing the changing the substrate. So maybe I'll get ahead of whatever the cyano is utilizing
When,
and kill it
like
off.
cyano likes to lay on there, so maybe the constant tumbling is just not going to work for it.
Yeah. So, but I also think that I'm feeding those SPS. And
Oh,
so I've started basting all the tanks every once in a while into the sand and really, I don't want to export that sand, that goo. I want the stuff to eat it, but it'll eventually end up in the sump. But there's a lot of goo in the sand. And my mind story about this is, wow, that seems like it's free food. Why not use it? So I may end up putting a pump in my sump to automatically stir the mullum.
oh, I do that with
Mulm, mulm.
Jabao SLW30s. I
Yeah.
do that throughout my tanks.
But I may just do it like once a week as a
Yeah.
as an extra meal. Um, but it's a mind story, so I haven't put much thought into figuring out how to demine story it and make it more robust. Um, but it, is one of those things that might make a lot of sense. It sure does to me, and it does seem to be getting ahead of the cyano. So
I always laugh when you say mullum
it's mulm.
because yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I've always not like I'm correct, Richard.
You
I've
are.
always heard people say mullum because I was so confused when you first said mullum because there's no vowel after the L.
Yeah, I know. Keep
Mull LM.
keep rubbing it in.
No, but it's okay because I say so much dumb
Yeah.
shit. Like certainly you're allowed a little bit of
It's
dumb
not
shit.
dumb. I mean, it just means that you've read it more than heard it said,
I
So,
remember reading a book when I was a teenager, like barbarians and stuff, and there was a character named Guinevere, and in my head I kept saying Gu and Hyvar, and
sure.
and then I started telling my mom about it, and she was like, "What'd you just say?" And I was like, "Gu and Hyvar." He's like, "No, son, it's Guinevere."
There was a book by Larry Niven called All the Myriad Ways, and I'd never heard the word myriad pronounced, so I thought it was myrid. And I sent that to somebody and they laughed at me, and I was like, oh, that's mean to laugh at me because I've never heard anybody say this word out loud. How would
No,
I
totally.
know? Fucking
I
bitch.
used to think fatigue was fatigue.
Sure, why not?
Yeah,
So funny.
who knows? That's like when I first started going to Macnas, and you get this
Makana.
exposure to people above you, and I'm trying to say choral words like real carefully and quietly. And I listen to say, the same way I told you I handled that at stores where someone comes in like, "Do you guys have cichlids?" And I would say, "Yes, our cichlids are over here."
Right.
And
I
and
was at
just leave it, let them pick it up or not.
I was at dinner with Julian and Sanjay and somebody at an aquatic expo in Illinois at Gaylord's Indian food, and I was talking about my feminist wrasse, and Julian just goes femininus, and I went, "Ah, fuck,
Yes.
fuck," in
Damn it.
front of Julian.
Yes.
I had never bothered to spell it out, and I had
Yeah.
never heard anyone say it.
That's when you mumble it and say it quietly, and people are like,
Right.
"What?"
I gotta. If that happens again, I will bring my inner Ben out.
Yeah. I mean, after a couple years of that, I didn't give two shits because Because I figured that was sort of tied to my ego. If I was saying things wrong or not, I don't give a fuck if I'm saying it wrong and someone corrects me that I look up to. I love that they corrected me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, me too. As long as they're not dicks.
Yeah.
Asses, excuse me. Dick is misogynist. I want to give a quick spawning update. I didn't get it together to have pictures and stuff, but very kindly, Walt Smith and Quality Marine and Kevin Cohen helped me get some corals from Fiji for the
Oh, cool.
spawning, for part of the spawning this year. I'm also hoping to get some more strawberry shortcake from Quality Marine as well. But Walt was very helpful in getting me some corals. I got some Millipora and some Cerealis, and the Cerealis is off the chain. It's like,
And I love Millipore though. I love how furry.
dude, I hate Millipora, but
Really?
yeah, I don't know. That's just a weird coral. Maybe it doesn't like my tank as much, but
Oh, it doesn't get so fuzzy?
it doesn't get so fuzzy for me. No, it doesn't. No, I'm looking at it now. No, it doesn't. But the Cerealis is up here, and it's freaking crazy. And I actually didn't want Millipora, but it was one of the ones he sent. But I'm looking at the ones he sent. The ones I have from 2 years ago that I spawned are bigger than the ones he sent. So I'm going to try to
No
cross
joke.
those. I'm going to
Oh,
cross those.
wicked.
So that'll be fun. So
What do you like about the Cerealis? Like its color or its
yeah,
growth?
its color is, oh, it's, you
Nice.
know, it's got several different colors down on the coral, and the coralites are bright green or yellow. It's just crazy looking.
Like a tricolor situation.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of. It's really
Quad,
cool. It's
pent color,
the hexanominal,
sept,
dodecahedronal.
dodecahedron.
Um, but what I'll do in an upcoming episode, I'll do a video of what I've done to the back, where the spawning rack is, not the lab rack, the spawning rack, and I'll show those corals as well. But I just wanted to give a good shout out to Walt Smith and Quality Marine and Kevin Cohen. And actually, I'm going to Fiji this summer, so maybe I'll go see and say hello to
Cool.
Walt. But yeah, they were very generous in helping me getting that coral, so I just need to give them a shout out. In fact, let's just say I'm shilling for them now.
Technical difficulty in Reef Beef Land.
Champion lighting and supply. Champion lighting and supply. You know, that was a nursery rhyme my mother used to sing to me.
She did.
Yes, I used to. Is 1975. I used to go to sleep to that.
Your mother was so kind.
So sweet.
You know what I've got from Champion Lighting and Supply?
Probably
Ben,
a lot of things.
the Ocean Sea Wave.
Oh, whoa.
So this is like yeah, there's a clip for this motor, and it goes on the side of your tank, and then you put your power head onto this magnet, and then it rotates
Whoa.
at whatever speed you want it to, at whatever angle you want it to. So it
Does it have 360 travel?
it doesn't 360, but it goes 360. This model goes 360, and then it goes back the other way. It doesn't
Okay.
keep going one.
Yeah.
And this model, you can change the speed and the angle that it covers. And then I've got some brackets here. And I like this product a lot. I'm trying to figure out how to use it in a tank that has got in a small tank. In a bigger tank, it's super great. And I highly recommend it. I think it's pretty cool. And I got a Champion Lighting and Supply.
Champion lighting and supply. Champion. Go to sleep, little Ben.
Technical difficulty in Reef Beef Land.
Ooh, I have a shout out.
Shout out, mother.
So, I took over a client that has a hydros finally, and I
Yeah.
was talking about it in our Discord, and someone in our Discord owns JB Aquatics.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
sent me this cool switch where I could, you know, they have a video, jbaquatics.com. And so he goes through, you know, different ways that you can use it. So I need to wrap my head around, like, maybe this will be like, oh crap, something's going wrong, just shut everything off. And that might be like feed mode, maintenance mode, you know, I'll have to figure out what I want to do with it.
So what Ben is holding up is a box, switch box, and It's JB Aquatics.
Yes.
And there's one like that for the Apex as well. And it's got the version Ben is showing has got one toggle switch and four momentary switches. And what they allow you to do is assign each of those switches a job. So if you have I want to turn off, I use it a lot to turn off pumps for when I'm checking on spawning or to turn on red lights when I'm checking on spawning. But you can use it for great maintenance. If you want to, you can set the momentary switch so you press it and then your flow mode goes into feed mode or super high mode for however amount of time you want it. I've also used it a lot for disco mode where I want to see everything in blue and it clicks it into blue, but then automatically in half an hour or whatever, it goes back to normal.
There's probably a million different things you can
Yeah,
do
you
with
can
it.
do anything with them and they're super awesome. I'm glad they sent you one that's really nice for maintenance because you can flip it to, whatever setting you have for while you're wet skimming and it'll turn
Yeah.
down all the pumps. Um, just watch out if you do put it on the timer that because I've had stuff on timers, like low flow, and
Yeah.
I'm working on the tank and it takes longer than the timer took. And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden the flow all comes back on and when I'm not ready and blows everything around.
Definitely.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's really cool. You're gonna love it. That kind of unautomating is pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
not really unautomating, but
Which, as an aside, real quick, another thing I have to say is, it's good when you're doing maintenance that you test your components, make them do what they're supposed to do, like top off, like dosers, like putting things through their paces. Like it's a good time to make sure things are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
so how do you put a doser through its paces?
Like if I'm changing water on someone's tank, I'll wait till the water drops and I'll just let it engage for a second, just
Ah,
so I see that it's just for a second. I just want to make sure, and then I maybe move it down and just make sure it shuts off. I'm just forcing things to do their thing in front of me while I'm there, because when I'm not there, no one's doing that.
yeah. So wait, what do you use the dosers for? Top off?
No, well, there's a couple times where I use dosers for top off, but usually for dosing AFR.
That's done by a top off switch?
No, no, no. Like I'll have the doser, and I'll go in, and usually I know you don't do it, but usually I'll make it like I'll go in and like the Khmer doser comes with a little 10 mil graduated cylinder, and so
Ah, I see.
I'll take like a minute to make sure that it's calibrated, and it's not that I'm doing that just because I'm trying to calibrate it. I'm also trying to say like, hey, do you move? Hey, are you pushing
I got
fluid?
you. So
Hey,
you'll just run the doser.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to figure out how you did it. So yeah, I can in Apex I flip the switch and then go visually see that the doser is dripping and then go, oh, okay.
Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
find if I just assume that things are working, I forget that they don't tap me on the shoulder and tell me they're not working.
Yeah, eventually they stop. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing. How often do you do that? As often as you want to do it, it's good to check every 6 months, every year. It's good to check every month.
I guess in my situation, I'm there and I'm trying to, cram all these change water, observe stuff, make sure
Yeah.
things working. It's sort of part of my repertoire. So that in itself is like, it's funny too, because like as getting paid, like I remind myself, you're getting paid to do this, make sure everything's squared away. If I do stuff at home, like I'm not that methodical.
It's so funny. We're such a funny
You gotta
combination
wiggle money at me.
because I'm fucking. I don't want to do anything. Press a button or have it do it automatically, and
That's how I am at home though.
and then at work you're like, everything must be perfect.
Yes.
No.
And it's funny when I get home, I have like no energy left for that. I'm like, are you alive? Great. Cool.
Yeah, great. I'm going to sleep now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was quarantining some stuff, and dose and treating it, and I turned off my top off and my automatic water change.
Mm.
And then last night I go to put everything back because it was done. And then I check the auto water change and nothing's coming out all day. And I went, oh, geez, I've been doing water changes on the system and not refreshing it. And so I looked out and my sump was 3 inches down,
Getting ready to start cavitating.
which means the auto water change
Oh,
intake was above the water line, which is why no water was coming
Not to
out of it. So
inject.
it's like, oh,
What about your freshwater top off?
I had turned that off.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, yeah. I'm smart
Because
enough that when
otherwise
I,
you're slowly turning into a freshwater tank.
yeah, no, I turned that off. But yeah, you got to check stuff and troubleshoot stuff and pre-troubleshoot, or you wait till it breaks. A PG&E guy came by my house. He's the gas people here because there was a leak or something. And I was talking to him about my furnace because my furnace is 50, 60 years old, right? And I was like, he's the only guy who said this. He changed all the plumbing out from the meter. But I was like, yeah, these guys who are going to do the furnace, they won't call me back. They don't seem to want my money. And he's like, well, why do you want to replace it? I'm like, because it's really old. He's like, is it working? And I was like, yeah, yeah. He's like, well, then wait till it stops working. Why?
But my question would be like on a particular thing, if it stops working, if something dangerous happens, then that makes sense to jump ahead of the curve.
Yeah, but I mean, the furnace not working. Well, I mean, what dangerous is going to happen? That couldn't happen anytime with any furnace anyway.
So I guess in that case, in San Francisco, if your furnace doesn't work, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. It'll be cold, but we have electricity.
Yeah.
But it was funny because he was like, "Do you have a pilot light?" And he's like, and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm not crawling under there to relight it." So I was like, "I'll crawl under the relighter." He's like, "Oh, okay." And then he replaced all the plumbing. But his take was like, why would you replace the furnace? Wait till something goes wrong. So you could do that with your tank too. So that's always a question for me: is maintenance or wait till you have to do something? What's the investment in time? And only
But
you can make that decision.
do you know how you and I were talking about like sort of like daydreaming or like when you're going to sleep and thinking over things? You could run scenarios in your head of all these components. Like, what if I just ignored my ATO? What bad could come about from that? How could I mitigate that? Blah blah blah. Do I once every 3 months do this, or do I just freaking wait for it to shit the bed on its own? You
That's that's the question. I, before my brain drugs, was really anxious about stuff going wrong. And now that my brain isn't fucked up like that, it's like, oh, okay, if something happens, we'll take care of it when. I'm not throwing caution to the wind, right? But I'm not like, oh my God, I need two backups in case both of my drains clog, that will automatically turn it off.
Basically, your old brain used to overdo all your worries.
Yes. And I'd be scared of everything. And now it's like, oh, if something overflows or something goes wrong, I'll deal with it because stuff goes wrong anyway. So, healthy, how much do you feel like putting into making your system disaster resistant? Like I'm calm now about the battery backup that I have, where yeah, a year ago I would still be going, well, I need a whole house thing now. I need a whole house thing. And I'm like, yeah, what are you going to
This
do?
is this is what I think about quarantining snails.
Don't
I
do it.
can't I can't get I understand why you would, but I can't get myself to give a shit about that.
Yeah. I now quarantine anemones
They can bring in some crap.
and prophylactically treat them
Do you really?
with Cipro now. Yes.
Some variety, not like Intacmia quadricolor bubble tips, like they could live in your toilet. But I find that a lot of like sea bay or like long tentacle anemones and stuff like that, they have a much less track record. The
Well,
the less
the weirder
common.
ones are
Yeah.
weirder, right? So I had that cool ass hemfrichai,
Yeah.
and I brought in some more, and they killed it,
Huh.
right? And they made my Magnifica sick, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this sucks. So I got some Cipro, and the thing is,
Now you're a Cipro bro.
you've got to do it well for a couple reasons. It breaks down. I'm doing it in 5 gallons of water, right? So it's really I'm not going crazy. But the thing is, you've got to do the full treatment.
Yeah, just like with humans.
You
Like
got to do the
if
10
you're
days.
not doing a full treatment schedule, then you're just the ones that survive, you're making super bugs.
Yeah. And so but not even just, I'm not even worried about the superbug. If you only partially treat and it's not killed the bug, and then you bring that anemone and put it in wherever, it's going to go down likely, and it's going to bring your other anemones down. And who the fuck wants that shit?
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. The 5 gallons is great because it uses almost no. I'll make a video and show it to you because it the lazy is very big with me on the system, and I'm very happy with it.
Is
So
it hard to get Cipro?
no, it's not as easy as it once was, but you can order it from some places.
Oh,
You can
okay.
order it from people, but you can also get it
Aliens.
for fish. I got mine from a koi place.
Oh, okay.
You know, and speaking of my brain, I didn't buy 500 capsules. You know, I bought 100 capsules or whatever
Yeah.
because it was like I don't need to keep it for the apocalypse, like
Well,
I
no, and
used to think.
but that's dumb to do that stuff because stuff has a shelf life, and it's
Well, I
just
mean, but that's what my stupid brain used to do. It's like, oh
yeah,
my God, what if I can't get it when I need it?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I'm disposing of it properly, and I'm using it minimally, and I'm using it fully. I had a talk with Salem about that. He was like,
Oh,
"You got to do the." I was like, "Should I do 7 or 10 days?" He's like, "Do 10 days because why not?" Right?
yeah.
Technical difficulty in Reef Beef Land.
PolypLab. PolypLab. You're waiting for the uptick there.
I had no
PolypLab.
idea. That's a really interesting Gregorian song
Really, that comes from an old artsy German film from 1967.
called "Das PolypLab."
Das PolypLab no Flackenstein.
Ben, are you using that Genesis block rack?
I am. And I did have, man, I no joke. I think I have 100 Genesis blocks out there. I went
Wow.
crazy with it. And
Wow.
well, one particular client has 18 in his sump.
Wow. That's
And I just
awesome.
had them laying around, but you know, it's weird. I did think like, I think it's overthinking it, but I was thinking like where I had them laying down, they're not so effective on that bottom part. But then once they sent me the rack, and I was like, okay, this makes more sense. So I started getting racks and putting them in there. I felt like it probably makes them more effective.
Yeah, I'm just writing a note down as we're doing the commercial for PolypLab. Rich, buy more Genesis blocks because
I'm a trendsetter.
especially the tanks I have in the back that have a lower flow through them. It's like I want them to each have a couple of Genesis blocks, so I'm sure that they've got localized bacterial filtration happening on.
Man, for a while there, you know, I was adding biomaterials to sumps, and I was using that company that makes those crumbly ones. And
Ugh,
trust me, I was so happy to get away from that
yeah, it's such
because
a
they're nightmare.
yeah, and they're also there's all like the pores are so big that they're just full of goo. And so
Yeah.
you pick one up and it just drips brown water. I like the Genesis blocks a whole lot more.
Yep. I'm all about them Genesis
Yeah.
blocks.
So pick them up wherever good reefing products are sold.
PolypLab.
Das Polypmacher.
Polyp and Macken blocken.
Mocking blocking.
Technical difficulty in Reef Beef Land.
Here's a pro beef. Your tank is great. Everyone, the whole world seems to be geared at making you feel like your tank is inadequate for some reason. And your tank is your tank. It's for you. You should be making it as beautiful or as interesting with the animals that you like in your tank. If you like blue light, you should have more blue light. If you like white light, you should have white light. If you like green star polyps, you should have green star polyps until you don't like them anymore. You should be happy with your tank and proud of your tank and not trying to compare your tank to other people's tank, not trying to make your tank perfect. Enjoy your tank for what it is. If you don't like it, make changes. But if you like it, freaking lay back and enjoy your tank. Your tank is perfect the way it is.
Comparison is the thief of happiness.
Yes. Don't let that happiness thief into your soul.
But that's like the Instagram thing and like people's thought about themselves. Like,
Yeah.
Not to, not going down that road, but I'm just saying if you like, man, all these tanks on Instagram are badass. Like, well, they might have like filter tweaked the color, or who knows. Or
Yeah,
you see
so they are
someone's tank
badass.
doing great right now, and as far as you know, it shit the bed a week later.
Yeah, and your tank's gonna change. The last iteration of my display that had the big blue stag things up front, and I changed it, move it to the back. Tank looks very different. But it's like, which is better? I don't know. You've got living things that grow. Your tank's gonna change.
Constantly
It's
change. Yeah.
so like it for what it is, and if you don't like it, tweak with it. I'm really liking this anemone tank, and I'm really liking that I'm going to change the entire thing in the next couple of weeks. And I have an idea for what I'm going to do. Remember that ledge tank that Scottish Ron had?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to do something like that.
Scottish Ron.
Scottish Ron.
I miss Scottish Ron.
Rondo. Let's talk about Live Rock. Live Rock, to reach our friend Jonathan, he said, sometimes I'd like to hear you all talk a little more about your thoughts on Live Rock. You were both using Live Rock during the time that it was plentiful and common. Most people who use Live Rock then now seem to think that currently available rock sucks. I gather y'all think some current Live Rock sucks and some doesn't. Would enjoy your thoughts on what sorts of current offerings y'all like, so you don't, and what you don't like, and what you would want to do with the currently available rock to feel like it would be good for starting a new system. Also, I wonder whether people's mostly negative opinions of current rock is more about bad synthetic rock materials or more about poor curing maturing procedures on the rock that's sale for now. I'm just going to add something to that very last one. I think the main thing is, back in my day, the rock was amazing. I think that's the main thing about the current live rock. Now,
Yeah.
back in my day, the rock was amazing, but it was amazing more for the shapes that were available. But that kind of went away really quick. That heyday, as soon as live rock started be collecting a lot, for the trade, the coolest pieces seemed to disappear because they were the easiest to collect. But beyond that, Ben, what do you think?
Okay, so I have a lot to say about this.
Oh God.
I started in this industry professionally in 1995, and at that time and for several years, it was all about Marshall Islands. Now, I remember the coralline algae, the CCA algae that was on Marshall Islands rock was like nothing that you have ever seen before. It was insane. And so that was my first impressions of rock. I remember as it got close to 2000 and clicked over 2000, it was mostly about like Fiji rock. And I do remember, well, I remember too, even back then in Marshall Island rock, there was also Tonga that you could get from time to time that was
Tonga
branching.
branch.
And
Yeah.
that was badass stuff too. Fiji was a step down, in my opinion, of like CCA coverage, but Fiji had great shapes too. So it was great shapes. In 2008, Houston, not just me, a hurricane hit just me. In 2008, a hurricane hit Houston. I had 1,000 pounds of Fiji live rock in my garage in a giant vessel, clicking over. Suffice to say, it all died. 2008 is when I officially was like, okay, screw it, because I just dried it all out because it was a mess. But the shapes are incredible.
Yeah.
I still have this container in my garage ever since 2008. I'll set up a new tank, I'll pull some from there, someone will break a tank down, I'll take some rock. The weird thing is I'm always trying to get zeroed on that container, but I've never, because a lot will go out to set up a new tank, and then sometimes I'll lose a client or just someone calls me and like, do you want this live rock? And so it's like take a penny, leave a penny constantly. So now in the last few years, I've taken over tanks that use like I don't know if it matters to say the company or not, but just, this handmade rock. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm okay on the shapes. I don't like the lack of porosity and stuff like that. And it's funny when I sit back and think about it, the most trouble that I've had with setting up a tank with dry stuff and getting through the uglies is with complete man-made rock. I don't know if it's the porosity. I don't know if it's the chemical makeup. I don't
No,
know
do you
what it
know that
is.
it's, do you mean actual porosity or do you mean nooks and crannies on the surface?
Yeah, nooks and crannies on the surface and porosity inside of it.
Okay.
Like you can make a real cool looking tank with I think it's Carib Sea arches. You
Yeah.
can do a lot of those arches, but you know, and they glue stuff to it. And in the marketing stuff, I'm not crapping on them. I'm just saying like very porous. And but I mean, I have 1,000 pounds of old dry Fiji live rock. It doesn't hold a candle to that type of stuff. And
Yeah, that's interesting because it needs to, if they make it more porous, it's more breakable, right?
yeah,
So they got to ride that line. It's interesting.
but when someone comes to me and wants to set up a reef tank, what has been used? I still pull from this whatever, all this Fiji rock, all these different shapes of porosity that sits dry in my garage. I rinse it off because what I end up doing a lot of times is building a sculpture because I like to do that if the client has a decent enough budget because I mean, I look at myself as an artist and that's one of the ways where I can sort of express myself by making these cool art structures, you know,
Yeah.
before I do it. And I can't do that wet. You know, so I set that up dry. And then, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea to bring in some actual live rock and put a couple pieces in there, you know.
Yeah. I'm looking at this anemone tank, which I realize I've not shown anybody, but that's all artificial rock. And I like how it looks, even though I'm going to totally change it.
I mean, I feel like, right? I
But
feel
it's
like,
but it's the scaping that I did. It's not,
yeah.
it's not like here's two pieces of rock and I put another one. It's like I did all kinds of stuff to
But
make it look
do we
natural.
really think that any of these companies that are part of our industry that are making this stuff out of inappropriate stuff? I would sort of feel like I'd find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I don't think it's totally inappropriate. It may not be as efficient, but I was more looking at the look of it.
Yeah.
It's I think people also think that the artificial rock you just drop it in and it looks good, and a lot of people do. I think it needs, just like live rock, needs some massaging to make it look. Or the Paul Whitby, he said just dump it in, let it land where it lands because that's what happens. It's going to look more
Yeah.
natural if you do it that way. Um, so the looks, that's up to you to make it look the way you like it to look. Some people like that arch with frags glued to it.
Yeah.
That's not my cup of tea, but I get it. Um, the porosity, I don't know. I remember we used to people used to make their own live rock and they would use rice because the rice would,
Or
inside the
rock
rice
salt
would,
too?
or rock salt, so it would disappear after
Yeah.
it's cured and leave more voids inside, or little bits of styrofoam, or the biodegradable styrofoam pieces.
Squirrel hair,
Yeah,
chest
mohair,
chest hair,
whatever a mohair is, the chest
mo,
hair.
mohair suit.
Um, but let's see, what did Jonathan actually ask? When it was plentiful and common, it was cool, but very quickly I learned that, lots of the cool stuff just died out within 6 months. People used to get sargassum and it would look really cool. It's the algae. And after a few months, that would just die off. So you get these blooms and stuff would die off. And it also became clear that you were getting at least the same amount of pets as the same amount of cool stuff, right? I mean, I've got an Atlantic coral that I got on a piece of live rock 25 years ago that's still going, and it was one of the coolest hitchhikers. But gorilla crabs and I mean, it's cool to get that stuff. It's cool to get mantis shrimps and all that kind of stuff. But that's, you're rolling the dice, and most people don't want that stuff in their tank,
I
right?
I'd also say it's funny because unless you were there, you're just going off of an opinion of someone told you something. So I wouldn't want to romanticize it. I
Exactly.
also remember you and I talked about this before. Man, live rock used to cost so damn much. It used to be one of the most expensive parts of you setting up a reef tank.
Yeah.
Live rock.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'd say it's sort of lights.
Yeah, I've got like two 90-pound pieces of rock that I
Yeah.
bought fully seasoned. They were in a tank and, in a tub, and I pulled them out. And I love that's so I don't care. I personally don't really care about what the rock is made out of. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Like anything else in that, I'll use a mix. So I'll use some Marco rock, which is not artificial rock, but it's quarried old reef. And I'll use some for the shapes that is artificial rock and make a mix. I mean, that's your safest bet on any of this. If you want some actual live rock, KMP Aquatics out of Florida has some. But again, you're risking bringing in whatever the fuck is in the ocean. And if you're worried about stony coral tissue loss disease, do you want that? So any live rock or any rock at all I'm going to have is going to go into a container of salt water, and it's going to sit for a couple months with some Genesis rocks or some rocks from something else.
Richard, I just had a thought from the past, almost like one of those things where like, oh, remember Kodak photo development booths?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I just had this thing that hit me in the head. I forgot this. I don't hear people say it anymore, but there used to be this concept of base rock. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there still is, but people don't think about it. So you use the big round shapes, the big stupid shapes as the rocks on the bottom to hold the structure kind of up, and then you glue or balance a prettier rock on top.
Yeah, like when I worked in stores, if someone came in and had like a boatload of money, they would just do mostly all the good live rock.
All the
But I
Kukani.
remember we were like, why put this really good Marshall Island stuff like underneath, like get base rock? It was just less dynamic rock.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. The other thing that absolutely, and the other thing that came along with the live rock is it started being not flown in, but shipped in a container, right? So it would be packed in a container with wet newspaper, and it would still come damp, but everything was fucking dead on it, or dying. And if you put that right into your tank, you're in trouble. And that's where
Oh, totally.
that's where cooking, because it's all this bio stuff degrading, right? So that's where the idea of cooking, I'm still so mad we can't use that term anymore. But it was, aging the live rock that came in. So you would set a brood up or some kind of ag trough,
Rubbermaid, yeah.
and you would put the rock in it, and you put a heater in it, and you put a power head in it, and you do water changes on it every 3 weeks or whatever, and just let that goo itself out. Bacterial turgor, I think, is what Chris Maupin used to call it. You want the bacteria to grow and push all the dead shit out of the rock.
Like if you weren't around back then, two things on that. I remember in the 90s when someone deeper in the industry than I was told me about how the rock was kept after it came out of the ocean, like literally stacked in wax boxes up
Yeah.
like past your head, sitting there, and this is someone that worked in that capacity telling me like some of these boxes sat there for a month, 2 months.
And
it's
then it
like,
gets shipped.
yes. And so, and that was part of our job in stores. You'd get in a live rock shipment and no one was allowed to touch it for like 2 weeks because you'd bring it in and whatever was going to die would die. And then, you'd sort of hold it until it was available for people to take it.
Yeah.
And the huge no-no, now and then this would slip, is like someone with a 40-gallon would buy a piece of live rock that big and it would bomb your tank out.
Yeah. So, that's what it was. I mean, you could get some pieces sometimes that came in and were delicious. I know K&P now ships it in water, right? Which is why it's expensive. So
Yeah.
if you want that stuff alive, that's what you got to do. And
you don't need to fill your whole tank with it. You only need a few pieces.
Yeah. And, even when it was in those wax boxes, some stuff would survive, but not much. I remember going to Tonga in 2005 and hand picking a bunch of rock, and shipping it back and putting it into a 90-gallon cube tank I had under the house. And man, that was so fucking disgusting. Do water changes on it for 3 months, and then it was finally, then it was finally usable. And I still have pieces of it around,
I remember lots of mantis shrimp that used to be a huge deal in the 90s.
Yeah.
Remember that?
We
A
killed
huge
it.
deal. Gorilla crabs.
Oh,
There was cool stuff too, because there's something I don't see much anymore was peanut worms. I used to see on Live Rock.
that's true. I've got spaghetti worms all over the place, but peanut worms, yeah.
You'd take all the rock out of those wax boxes and then you'd always find peanut worms under there.
I gotta look at my tank at night and see if there's still peanut worms in there. That's a good question. Um, that made me
I don't
think of
miss the
something.
smell. That
No,
sweet metallic smell.
oh, it was so gross.
No, it was
And then
nasty.
so the idea of having your rock seasoned was for any kind of rock, and it seems pretty clear that it almost doesn't matter. You just season it, and then you can use it. Um, does current live rock suck? There's some Australian live rock coming in that's pretty cool. But it should be expensive. It was over collected in a lot of places, and that's not good for the environment. Unless you collect it right at the edge of the abyssal trench, where it falls off the cliff.
Ain't nobody going over there.
So yeah, unless you could responsibly collect it if it was at the edge of the abyssal plain, that's where it falls off and goes 2,000 feet down. But collecting it there is not easy, so it would be more expensive.
I remember thinking back then, even like they would always say, these are collected out of rubble zones. And it's like, can we just, as humans, I think we think things can just keep happening.
Right.
But like if you have some morals about it, it's like, are you guys just ripping up the reef at some point? Like, and that's why I get bristly when people say like, this is good for the hobby, make it bigger. And even though it's my industry, I'm like, I don't know that that's good.
Yeah. Well, the live rock, there was some big scandals with live rock. There were whole areas. I mean, if you're
Denuded.
denuded. If you're and it's not like, people are saying, well, those aren't reefs. They're a different kind of reef where there's just rock and no coral. In Quadge,
Oh,
where all the cool wrasses were in Quadrilin, was
yeah.
just like this dead, nasty, rock barren. But it was full of the coolest fucking fish, right? And if you're trying to make as much money as you can, which everyone in business is, almost everyone, you collect what's easiest close. So it was like they had to go further and further, and they weren't policing, and they would collect it right off the reef flat, in the daytime. And yeah, it was not responsibly done, and it got shut down in a lot of places.
And I
Because
was just chuckling about that because not that I'm an ecological scientist or have had training, but just to think that some part of an actual ecosystem that's out there is less important than some other part. Like,
right.
oh, that's just the algal zone. Shit happens in the algal zone that is
Right,
important to the entire reef.
right.
Like, oh, that's just where broken rock lands. Yes, that is a breeding ground for certain types of fish and animals, urchins, snails that do certain things.
Yeah.
You
Which is
don't just get to remove it and like it's trouble free.
right. No, yeah. Just like killing a reef, other
Those are
stuff
just
comes
freaking
in.
mangroves, man. That's not important. Pull that part out.
So I don't think any of the live rock sucks and doesn't. I think I treat it all the same, which is fucking season it.
Yeah.
Season
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Even if it's not like, not like live rock you bring in and you have to season it there. If it's dry man-made rock, and like, oh, I'm gonna set up a reef tank, and one of the first things you get in is your rock and it's sitting in the corner. No, no, no. Get it in some water.
Yeah, let the benthic succession happen.
Yes.
Um
Wetlands, Richard. Wetlands is just blank spot. That's a good place
yeah,
for a Walmart.
we got to put a fucking Bucky's there.
Yeah.
The benthic succession is very cool. I'm not getting any algae problems in this reef, but watching the rocks change over time is pretty neat.
That was my nickname in high school.
Benthic succession.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I meant. The dry rock and the live rock, it's all the same. Put it in a thing and season it. And if it's all dry rock, spike that with some mullum or goo and rock from somebody else's system.
Or better yet, put a couple Genesis blocks from PolypLab in with
Yeah,
it.
you fucking shill. Jonathan wanted to know what would be good for starting a new system. Any seasoned rock. If you make any rock live and use that, and you'll have less nasties. You just will, because it's already got stuff growing on it.
Prep it.
Yeah. So that's what else are we missing about live rock? Tell us what you think below. I really wish we could call it cooking.
Cooking. Who says we can't say cooking?
Well, we don't call it cooking live rock because dumb people then
Oh.
go and boil their live rock or put it in the oven and aerosolize toxins and kill their pets and shit.
Yeah.
But you know what? Fuck the stupid. Fuck the stupid.
Like we can't sell bags of broken glass because someone's gonna eat it.
I like the term cooking, and it feels like cooking. When you took live rock and put it in, you made this nasty stew. It was
Hmm.
gross, man. And you got to heat it up. So yeah, no, I like cooking. Bring back
Yeah.
cooking.
Bring
Um,
back cooking.
bring back cooking. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's everything he asked.
The First Amendment is under attack, and if we want to say cooking, we're gonna say cooking.
It's not that you can buy Insta Live Rock. It never was, right?
Oh no.
When you
No.
bought Live Rock that was fresh and you put it in your tank, you had a whole different slew of things that you had to deal with that you don't have, that you don't deal with dry rock, or that you don't deal with seasoned rock. It's just you're just pushing it around. The only rock that you can insta set up a tank with is seasoned rock.
Yep.
And by the time it's seasoned, it's all live.
Even the only thing, the closest I think you can get to it is the places that ship rock in water.
Yeah.
But it's still gonna need some time.
Well, then what pests are you bringing in, right? I remember people used to get, it was like, oh, do you have dried out rock? I want your dried out rock because
Yeah.
then I'll put in a tub for 3 months and then I'll have great live rock and I'm not worried about introducing any pathogens.
It's so funny because not to go backwards, but like I remember in the late 90s, mantis shrimp coming in on live rock was a huge deal.
Yeah, and gorilla crabs, it was a real problem.
Yes.
There was a lot of them. In fact, the other day I've got like a frag tank under the house that's got nothing in it right now. And that's where I put my rock and stuff to season. And so when I need little pieces, I can go down there and build this
Yeah.
cube. And I was just thinking the other day that I need to find somebody who is getting rid of a bunch of rock that's dried out and get it and just to have a reservoir of rock in case I need to use it for something.
Bring a horse and carriage over here to Houston and I will load up your carriage.
We should fly you over and it'd be your carry-on.
Yeah. A bunch of dried rock.
Hey, beefers, if you're listening, I don't know when this is going to air, but Reef Stock is still in the future now, and Reef Retreat is in the future now. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you so much. I can't.
We're in the past trying to be in the present, thinking about the future.
Yeah, Reef Stock will end up, the hotel will explode and we'll all be dead.
Yes. Well, this will be our good, like,
Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
this will be aired on CNN.
It is so much fun to hang out with the beefers. We had a tank tour the other night that was really fun. It was Nicholas's tank. It was good to see what he's up to and what he's been doing. He's got some nice shit. And I've been doing the Wednesday night chats. I've been going out in the bathtub and hanging out in the chat. I leave my video off in the bathtub, in the outdoor bathtub. And it's nice to hear people chatting about reefs. It's a very cool community. And I've been hanging out a bunch on the public side of the Reef Beef Discord lately. And that's pretty fun too. And so it's a great community, man, on all sides. I think it's really nice. And with social media going through whatever the fuck weirdness social media is going through, it is nice to have a kind of quasi siloed area where we kind of know randos aren't coming in and going to go and shit on everything.
Yeah.
So I'm really appreciating everyone who makes up the community. So thank you so much. Kiss someone's ass, Ben, real quick. Go.
Thank you, beefers. No, that makes it sound like you're my dad and you're like, tell him thank you. Thank you.
I
No.
like your channel. Oh, did we do? I'm going to interrupt you as you give you time to think of something to say. But we also have an industry only channel on the Discord.
Yes.
And because somebody say, hey, can we have an industry only channel where we can just talk about industry things and not have to worry about hobbyists, which isn't really elitist. It's having a place to talk to people about without having to watch your mouth or worry about people or explain everything.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, well, we'll see how it goes. It's really cool. It's really cool. I read it. I don't post much in it, but I take a look at it because I'm allowed to take a look at it. And it's just, I'm loving having that service of
I like
serving that
the
community.
instead of Facebook one. I like that one. I don't use it all the time, but because sometimes I can go in there and bitch about something, because the worry is if I do that too publicly, I might bitch about a client, I might bitch about a situation I might bitch about something, and it feels like a zone where I can do that and not get judged.
Yeah. Instead of so the idea with that was you would take a picture of the thing you were going to respond to with your response typed in, but you wouldn't submit your response.
Yeah.
And now people are just and you would share that picture with what you would have liked to have said, but went, I don't need to say that. Now you can just people are just putting the picture up and everyone rolls their eyes collectively and talks about it. And it's really fun because you're not getting into a fight about it. You're just people are going, yeah, you're not crazy. That is a nutty thing that those people just asked for.
Well,
So
it's crazy if you've been through enough flame wars, like that shit just gets old.
so old and so dumb.
It's like I don't really want to argue about stuff, but I sometimes want to show people like, look how stupid this is, and not make a flame war.
Not make a flame war.
But I am super excited to hang out with beefers at Reef Stock. That's what I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
And last Reef Stock was sort of the first time that we really got together in that sort of capacity. And you and I were also trying to figure out how to exist in that sort of situation. And we had, now I'm being very candid here, we had some beefers that felt like they were last year part of like a B team. So I'm really excited to put energy into communicating better with everyone, letting them know where we're at and where to hang out. Because I don't want anybody feeling like they're part of a B team.
Yeah.
There's no Reef Beef B team.
No.
There's just bad communication.
Yeah. And there's people we don't like. No, that's not
Yeah.
why would I even joke like that?
If you feel like you're part of a B team, it's because we're trying to shake you.
Yeah, there is yeah, and the only reason there was B team was because there were some events that we were invited to or we were allowed to bring a couple of people with. And so we kind of did that. But if we had just been upfront about that, it would have been less onerous for people. They would have gone, "Oh, I understand how that works." I think there's way less of that this year just because the studio is going to be under and we're at a better hotel and I'm looking forward to hang out. There is nobody in the Discord that I am not looking forward to hanging out with. So I'm excited about that.
I'm
This,
excited about the new venue. I did not like that old
yeah, no
hotel.
one liked that old venue. That was scary. I'd like to thank saltwateraquarium.com for sponsoring us
Champion Lighting and Supply.
and for PolypLab for powering us. This is Reef Beef, and I'll leave you with this. I don't want to get into a semantic argument about it. I just want the protein. We'll see you next time. Okay, we're done.
That's it.
That's it. Good show.
I just right before we started recording, I just bought a tiny cow figurine off of Amazon.
Excellent.
So I'm gonna put that together with my chest hair in a tiny clownfish and encase it like
Do it.
Han Solo.
You should do a test first.
I should, but I do have a local buddy whose dad was like at one time putting things in resin and selling them online. So I'm gonna get with him because
Oh,
he
okay.
can
You're
help
on
me
it.
get past all that crap.
You're on it. Do you think you'll have it by Reef Stock or not?
Probably not because I want to do it. I want to do it right.
And then polish it out?
I would have it before a reef retreat.
Perfect. All right,
'Cause
man.
I think the main thing is figuring out how to get bubbles out of it.
Yeah, that's in the pour.
You got to shake it.
You gotta shake it like a Polaroid. Oh, your mom is a terrible person.
Yes. She actually just spat me out onto the floor and screamed Champion Lighting Supply at my face. We did
Fucking
good.
A. Meh.
Fuck the whole alphabet.
Meh. Meh. Okay.
Uni.
What's
Wata wata. Technical difficulty in Reef Beef land.
Let me open this up.
You have a huge Nepenthes.
Oh, I have my bog is fucking awesome.
I have a pretty good one. It's not that big though, but it has 3 of those vases.
I will do a video of my bog at some point.
You only put like distilled or RODI water in there?
It gets DI water.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets pumped in with by the Apex.
Cool.
It's
Oh, cool.
So there's water here. I've got a sight glass here, and there's an optical sensor so I can raise or lower the water.
Well, that's what I was about to say. The guy I bought mine from, he said it's important from time to time to let them dry just a tad.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I do that. I bring the sensor all the way down, and then I flood them once in a while too.
I've done well because it was 6 months ago and it's still alive and getting better. So if I, that's kind of how, when I keep an animal, if I do my best, but I'm not sure what I'm doing, but it's still alive after a while, I'm like, okay, and I'll push more energy into it.
Yeah, I don't I set it up just like a reef tank. I don't do shit to it.
And that orchid's nice too.
The lights, that orchid's been blooming for fucking 3 months. And I've got some blooms over here on a butterwort. I got some blooms here on sundews. And this is, I just rebuilt it about a month ago.
There's that weird stuff that floats in the water, something wart.
Duckwort?
No, it's like liverwort. And it traps animals. I bought this from this guy that had like nepenthes, everything like eating carnivorous plants, and I think it's liverwort.
Liverwort. Yeah, I've got some mosses growing, some pitcher plants.
Cool.
I'm pretty, oh shit, what was that? I'm pretty excited about it. I'll end up doing a video about it. You know, the lights come on, it doesn't need to be fed. I can drain it all the way down if I need to. I'm really fucking happy with it. And I like not doing anything to it.
It's cool. Like I found out about the Venus flytraps. Like, yeah, you can put flies in there, but it's not like super important like I thought it was.
And they die every year.
Yeah.
So leave them alone.